I can still recall the week that the pain left. It was like I had had a fire inside of me all those years, and now the fire was out. I was pain-free for the first time in 17 years, and I just cried with happiness. I could not believe that I had got myself through this. The story of the old me started ultimately in 2002 when I took on a job that was highly stressful for me, and I didn't handle the stress very well at all. And within 6 months of taking on that job, I began experiencing stinging needle-like sensations in my body, which began in my left upper arm, and like explosions of needles, and they soon spread all throughout my body. And over the months it was everywhere, and then within years it just intensified. The pain got worse and worse. I was given many medications and nothing worked until I went on to opioids. And from 2006 I remained on a different cocktail of narcotics for the next 14 years. Over the years I was diagnosed with many things. First one was PTSD, then fibromyalgia, then polymyalgia, then syringomyelia, and ultimately I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. Then I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and from breast cancer I ended up with 2 operations. The first one, they took out the lump and they realised that the cancer had metastasised, and they had to take 19 nodes out from underneath my right arm. And of course that led to a traffic jam in my lymphatic system, and I ended up with lymphedema, which has to be handled every single day for the rest of my life. And that led to cellulitis, which came along 5 times, and that's life-threatening. I was always rushed to hospital with sepsis, and I was there always for a week with very strong intravenous antibiotics. During this time, my life descended into a very dark space. I attempted suicide once, and after realising what I'd put my family through and spending 3 weeks in a locked mental facility, I realised I just had to keep on going. I was put onto more opioids, antidepressants, anti-anxieties, anti-inflammatories, antipsychotics, anti-anxiety, whatever came along. And then I ended up with cellulitis from cancer. I ended up on permanent antibiotics. And finally I was put onto sleep medication, which made me fall asleep on the toilet, and I would fall flat on my face on the tile floor constantly and injure my face. In 2017, my husband and I decided that we needed to move to a warmer climate. We thought that might help me. And we moved from Bathurst, New South Wales, to Maryborough in Queensland. And we moved to an over 50s lifestyle village. My main aim in doing that was to find a place where my husband could make friends and play as much tennis as he wanted, because that's his passion, because I honestly thought I didn't have long to live. After moving to Maryborough, however, I had a gastric sleeve surgery because I had reached the weight of 95 kilos, and that was way too much for my small frame. Anyway, I lost 19 kilos in 5 weeks, and after that I spent the next probably 2.5 years losing another 21 kilos. That was all working matter to matter, and I realised that there was something missing. The pain was still there. Early 2020, our oldest daughter, Hanelle, she rang me like she often does. Hanelle is a mental health nurse in Townsville, and she's a naturopath, and she's always been an incredible support to me. And she said, "Mum, I know you love YouTube. Go onto YouTube and look up Dr. Joe Dispenza." So I did that, and I resonated with everything he said. I started the meditations immediately. That was 3 years and 3 months ago, and I haven't stopped for one day. I've done the meditations every single day. My favourite one at that time was probably Blessing of the Energy Centres. So I would do an hour after lunch, and I would do 2 hours before I went to sleep. And I go to sleep with the generous present moment, and I have for 14 months now. And that's how I love the generous present moment. It's just beautiful. Once I began severing those old thoughts of victimisation, pain and suffering, nothing changed for 6 months, but I just kept doing the work. And the way to see my future, I could see a path in front of me, and I just took one step and another step. And every time I was drawn back into that victim mode, I would just see that path and I would be taking another step and another step. I got towards the end of 2020, the pain had really subsided and I was getting so excited. I had gone off most of my medications, and on the 11th of the 11th, 2020, I took my last opioid. So I would remember it. It was Remembrance Day and I wanted to remember that important date. I'm on no medication anymore. And all my pain left about 4 weeks after that, at the end of 2020. I had changed my diet a few times, which had been tweaked many, many times along the way. But now that I was working with energy and not just matter, things shifted completely. I had to change a lot of things about myself. I had to start thinking in a different way, and I had to start feeling like a different person. After all the pain had gone, I had to re-enter back into normal living life. Things had changed so much. I had to become responsible, more responsible for everything that I was doing, and I had to keep inventing a new me as I went. I had to learn to use the computer properly. I had to learn to use the new phones, which had become so techy. I had to learn to like Facebook, and I still don't like it. I had to learn to drive to the Sunshine Coast just to attend this week-long retreat. There were so many firsts, and none of them came with no anxiety, of course, and that's what Joe calls the river of change. And I just kept going. I just kept going. I knew that if every single one of those moments that caused me so much anxiety, if I just kept going and I persevered, I knew I would get there. And I'm here now, and the things that have changed in this event for me have been absolutely phenomenal. My first walking meditation was like nothing I had ever experienced. The energy that went through me was so profound that I just cried and cried and cried. And this morning I had another one of those walking meditations, and it just gets better and better. And I'm grateful from the bottom of my heart. My message to people who are sick and who have chronic illness or any kind of thing that they need to change in their lives, to make their lives better, my message would be to never stop seeking an answer. I shouldn't say don't listen to doctors, but the thing is, try not to just get too engrossed in the trust, believe and surrender to everything that one person says. You have to trust, believe and surrender in something far bigger within yourself, that no one has any idea the power and the magnificence that we all have within our being, and we have never been told.